Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Man of unsound mind kills police in Linstead, St. Catherine. Government awaiting date to challenge Court of Appeal decision against the use of state of later in sports. Austin Villa manager looking for a quick return of reggae boy Leon Bailey. I'm Anthony Lugg. Here are the details. Members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force were plunged into mourning following the death of a police officer in Linstead, St. Catherine this morning. He has been identified as Detective Constable Paul Gordon. It's reported that Constable Gordon was on duty in the town of Linstead when he was hit with a stone. He died from his injuries. The man behind the attack is said to be 25-year-old Alwyn Shakespeare, who is also known as Al. It's said Shakespeare has a history of attacking people in the streets.
Wow. He broke one old woman and he lit down one pregnant woman, make she lose her baby. And nothing no come out of it. They don't know nothing about it. And now he come take a police life just like that for nothing at all.
That incident happened just over a month after the man's family publicly appealed for the authorities to help in removing Shakespeare off the streets. Councillor for the Linstead Division, Herbert Garrix, is now calling for something urgent to be done to address the problem.
There seems to be nobody from government who has responsibility to get them out the street so that they are not as dangerous as they are. See there, we now lose a policeman at the hands of one of them.
The prosecution's first witness in the Wandon gang trial this morning testified that he gave $8,000 each to the triggermen who killed the deportee in Jones Avenue, St. Catherine in January 2017. The witness said the triggermen requested money to purchase food and weed after the hit was completed. The witness, who is now detailing the fourth murder, said he bought 2 stolen cars for a total of $100,000. He said those cars, along with rental cars, were used in the commission of murders linked to the gang. The 33 alleged gangsters, who the police say are accountable for murders, conspiracy to commit murder, and arson between 2015 and 2019, are being tried under the Criminal Justice Suppression of Criminal Organizations Act, commonly called the Anti-Gang Act and the Firearm Act. There are renewed calls for the government to reveal their crime plan as the island's murder figure escalates. The Attorney General has responded, listing efforts with states of emergency and reiterating that citizens must help, not harbor criminals, if any plan is to bear fruit. O'Shane Masters reports.
Where's the crime plan? The question being asked of the government by citizens. It comes as many believe that not enough focus is being placed on crime and violence, especially since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Citizens are even more upset with the Andrew Holness-led government, as they say there have been much more interest in the government getting people vaccinated rather than dealing with the crime plague. But speaking with a journalist yesterday, Attorney General and MP for St. James West Central Marlene Malahoo Fort says the government will be dealing with a crime monster.
The government is prepared to do what is required within the limits of the law to deal with the issue. The guns are barking too much and it cannot continue. Cannot continue.
She says it's time for people to stop harboring criminals and report them, even if it's a family member. To date, over 1,000 murders have been recorded island-wide.
I don't support the gun running. It don't matter where you come from. It is just causing a problem in the society. Too many persons have lost their lives to the gun, and everybody think that it is the in thing. You know, I get call 250 shots being fired in one location. For what?
Councillor for the Granville Division in St. James, Michael Troop, on a number of occasions have called for the declaration of a state of emergency in that community to deal with the rampant murders and shootings, but none to date. In that regard, Mrs. Malahoo Fort pointed out that the government has appealed the ruling against the SOE. In the judgment handed down by Justice Bertram Morrison last year, there were 68 conflicts found in the emergency powers regulation, making it unlawful. The Attorney General says no date has yet been given to her office as to when the matter will be heard. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
To a TVJ News follow-up now. 2 Clarendon farmers have been charged for the execution-style murders of 4 people in Havana Heights in the parish on September 9. They are 38-year-old Oral Richards and 24-year-old Andre Bennett, both of Four Paths. Investigators say the men have given caution statements admitting to their roles in the crime. It has been a week and 2 days since St. Anne teacher 34-year-old Rochelle Williams went missing. According to police reports, Williams has been missing since Wednesday, September 15. Miss Williams teaches at the Marcus Garvey Technical High School in the parish. The police's report is being supported by teachers, representatives from the Jamaica's Teachers Association, community members, relatives, and other concerned people. SSP Dwight Powell is the head of the St. Anne Police.
That is at our disposal right now in terms of the searches. We are continuing our effort and we will not stop with the effort that we are doing.
How close have you come to anything, any clues?
We have exhausted all the leads that we had. At one point we heard that she was located in Alligator Pond in Manchester. Having exhausted that lead, we realized that we were almost with nothing in terms of advancing our whereabouts.
In the meantime, SSP Powell also provided an update on Amanda Prince, a 14-year-old student of the same institution.
That search is still ongoing, and again, we were on it as late as today, trying to see how best we can probe those areas, those information that we got. Of course, she had communicated with family members, and we are still trying to reach out to our counterparts at the CFCD, that is our internal counterpart, to find out if we can get a location on the phone that she's using.
Effective October 1, there will be designated areas for vending in Montego Bay, St. James. Selling in areas like St. James Street will be prohibited. Mayor Leroy Williams says the city must reflect that it is the capital of tourism in the country. Under the new regime, all vendors must register their business.
By the 1st of October, we are expecting that those persons who are registered, those vendors who are registered, would have their ID card, color-coded ID card, which tells exactly where they are to vend. And some of the streets are Church Lane, Lower Market Street, Long Lane, Orange Street, Lower Lawrence Lane, North Lane, top of St. Claver's Avenue in front of the High-Low Supermarket, and Corner Lane, which there will be conditional vending.
Additionally, vendors from outside the parish who operate in the city may find themselves in trouble with the law.
We refer to these vendors as itinerant vendors, and the case is being made that once persons are not registered and they are not vending in the designated area, then they are going to face the risk of being prosecuted and their goods forfeited.
He says the police will heighten their presence in downtown Montego Bay. And it's time now for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News, and thanks for staying with us. The leadership of Arden High School has indicated that students have approached them to discuss a mixed teaching and learning format after the pandemic. Some students feel it's possible to go to classes some days and do online classes on other days. The principal of Arden High School, Nadine Malloy, believes it's a conversation stakeholders need to have about how to operate after the pandemic.
Another term of online teaching and learning is ongoing, and the negatives continue to outweigh the positives. But some students who have adjusted to the online format have questioned if things need to change after the COVID-19 pandemic.
Whilst the students are doing quite well and they're learning, most of them, in the virtual space, I can see that it would definitely be enhanced. And when I speak to them, that's what they tell me. Some of them are even looking at perhaps they could stay at home sometimes and come to school sometimes, a kind of blended format of how they come to school in the long term. That's something that we'll have to talk about and explore. What does it mean for education going forward?
Incidentally, the latest RGR Gleaner Don Anderson poll found that opinions were split on how high school students should continue after the pandemic. 58% of Jamaicans believed online teaching must not continue for high school students after the pandemic, while 42% of the people were in support of the format continuing. Ms. Malloy believes it is a discussion stakeholders in the education sector must have when the time comes. But until then,
right now, students need to be in contact with each other face-to-face, with their teachers. Students are challenged because they can't interface the way they would normally interface and interact with their classmates, their teachers, and even their extended family members. We were not made to operate in silos, and in some ways we have been operating in silos, and that is having a negative impact on us.
The principal was speaking at a function where close to $15 million was donated to the school by the Alumni Foundation. The funds will allow the school's leadership to invest in facilities focused on improving the emotional and mental health of students and staff.
I can think of just the kind of atmosphere that I envision being in that space, a garden type setting where there could be even something like pipe music. You have areas where you can just sit and be quiet and reflect. That kind of a wholesome, holistic approach to how we treat wellness is really very important.
Cody-Ann Barrett, TVJ News.
434 new cases of the coronavirus have been reported in the last 24 hours from 1,323 test samples. The overall case count is now 81,828. The country's positivity rate stands at 31%. Meanwhile, COVID-19 has claimed 12 more lives, pushing the death toll to 1,821. 6 deaths are under investigation. 663 people are hospitalized with a respiratory illness. 42 are critically ill, while 117 patients are severely ill. 51,544 people have recovered from COVID-19. There are 27,896 active cases on the island. The St. Mary Fire Department is reporting a decline in the number of fire-related calls. Speaking at the latest St. Mary Municipal Corporation meeting, head of the St. Mary Fire Department, Winston Newman, gave a breakdown of the figures.
For the month of August, the St. Mary Fire Department received 22 fire-related calls. That's a 46% decline when compared to the corresponding period last year. Head of the St. Mary Fire Department, Winston Newman, says of the 22 calls, 2 were malicious false alarms. This means there's also a reduction in the number of malicious calls to the fire department. But Mr. Newman says 2 malicious calls are still too much.
2 might not seem a lot, but 2 out of 22, you're looking at approximately 10% thereabout. And then we're talking about 10% of the response by the fire brigade would have been for calls that non-genuine calls. People just make up prank because they probably believe that you're staying at the station too long.
The other 18 were genuine calls, 8 of them residential fires. According to Mr. Newman, this represents a 33% increase in house fires.
And those 18 fires that we would have responded to, we have documented 13 persons as displaced from their household. Again, that is a significant amount of persons to have to relocate or go to seek other accommodations because they were affected significantly by fire.
However, he adds that overall, there's a decrease in the number of fires for August. For the same period, the fire department received 3 special calls. Mr. Newman says those calls were related to the impact of Tropical Storm Grace.
These special calls would have consisted of cutting up trees and so on to make the place safer for citizens and the roadway more easy to traverse.
32 buildings were inspected, however, only 6 were certified for the period. 7 hydrants were also inspected. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
The Minister of Local Government says discussions have started to provide transportation services for firefighters to get home after work. The response comes after 2 firefighters died in a crash on their way home after their shifts. More in this report.
A somber occasion at the Ocherius Fire Station in St. Anne. 2 members of the team died last week in a motor vehicle crash as they traveled home. They are Alex Williams and Stephan Walters. Wreaths were laid in their honor.
It is in this time, O God, we look towards you, because you are our source and our help.
But even as they tried to honor their lives, it was clear the tragedy was too much for many of their friends, many of whom became teary-eyed.
Really, it will be a very long time to get over this, but it will not be the same. It will not be the same.
They were both my brothers.
Among those who gathered to pay their respects was local government minister Desmond McKenzie, who has responsibility for the Jamaica Fire Brigade.
I think it's about the third time since I assumed the position of minister that firefighters would have lost their lives after going home once they have completed their shift. I think the occasion is right to engage the leadership of the brigade in some discussion as to how we can treat with situations that will prevent firefighters after completing long shifts to get home without them after the sitting behind a wheel and driving.
Counseling was also provided for the colleagues of the deceased firefighters. Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
And it's time now for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
In the financial world, development economist Chris Stokes says Jamaica, like most economies, had no choice but to consider the implementation of a digital currency. He says the direction of the global system is driving the need for central banks to consider cryptocurrencies.
As countries, as people start to use more digital currency, whether it's pegged to the US or it's Ethereum or Bitcoin, there's a real risk that the entire basis of monetary policy can be undermined, because the transactions, the creation of value, the multiplication of money in the economy is outside of the government control system, right? So your ability to use interest rates to affect monetary policy in whatever economy is compromised if more and more people are using these other currencies.
The Consumer Affairs Commission, CAC, says it has secured approximately $4.2 million in refunds and compensation on behalf of aggrieved customers for the period April to June 2021. The Commission said it handled 1,815 complaints for the financial year 2020-2021, an increase by about 10.3% from the previous financial year. And
now for the top regional and international stories, here's O'Shane Masters.
The Financial Intelligence Unit, FIU in Guyana, says it has received reports of more than 180 suspicious transactions since the beginning of this year, with most of the cases being fraud-related. FIU Director Matthew Langevin said while the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic has been blamed for curtailing several activities, criminal activities seem to have flourished under the pandemic. He is now urging people to take precautions in their use of social media platforms, noting that fraudsters have been using them as a means of getting people to send them money. 29 men from India are now under arrest for allegedly raping a 15-year-old girl over 8 months. The victim knew and came in contact with 3 of them via social media. The victim first filed a complaint on Wednesday, alleging she had been raped by 33 men, including 2 teenagers, since last January. The CDC's director is recommending boosters for people at higher risk for COVID-19 because of their workplace or institutional settings. This goes against the recommendation of the agency's independent vaccine advisors. The advisory committee voted 9-6 Thursday against recommending boosters for people ages 18 to 64 in those conditions. In a statement Friday, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky sided with the FDA in saying she supports boosters for this group. And that's it for your top regional and international stories. I'm Rashid Masters.
And we head now to a quick break. When we return, we'll have your midday sports report. Simon Preston is standing by.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. Despite not having reggae boy Leon Bailey for this weekend's clash against Manchester United at Old Trafford, Aston Villa manager Dean Smith is looking forward to welcoming back the 24-year-old attacker soon. Bailey has picked up a thigh strain and will be out until the end of the next international break in October. This means Bailey would miss Jamaica's games against the United States, Canada and Honduras in the World Cup qualifiers next month. Speaking at Friday's pre-match press conference, Smith praised the ability of Bailey.
You know, and he's had a very stop-start career so far at Aston Villa. He hasn't played an awful lot of minutes. Came with an injury, you know, from the Jamaica, the Gold Cup with Jamaica. And, you know, he unfortunately struck the ball so hard that he's got a thigh strain as well for his goal. But he's a talented player. He's got pace, he's got creativity. You know, he can score goals and he can create goals. So he's a top player. And
Aston Villa are 10th in the table on 7 points. Jamaica's Rugby Sevens team will be looking to improve on their 10th place finish from the first leg of the World Rugby Sevens series, as the second leg is slated to kick off this weekend in Edmonton, Canada. The Crocs will open their campaign versus Great Britain at 11:06 on Saturday. They will also face Ireland at 1:55 and Germany at 5:06 on the same day. This is Jamaica's debut as a Tier 1 Sevens nation in rugby. They recorded their first win in a 10-5 victory over Chile in Vancouver last week. And finally this afternoon, the Royal Challengers Bangalore posted 156 for 6 off their 20 overs against the Chennai Super Kings in match 35 in the Indian Premier League in Sharjah today. Devdutt Padikkal top scored for RCB with 70, while Virat Kohli made 53. West Indian Dwayne Bravo took 3 for 24 for the Super Kings. At sports time, the Super Kings had reached 78 for 2 after 10 overs. A victory for the Super Kings would carry them to the top of the table. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Anthony, it is over to you.
Thank you very much, Simon. And that's the Midday News. I'm Anthony Lugg. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.